What's going on, everybody? It's Brendon here again from Mortgage HQ, and in this video it's a case study of Brendon, who is one of our property formula workshop clients, and he is an experienced investor when he came. But what he did have as a challenge was when you have too many options, sometimes you lose focus and you're not too sure, which one you should go for. And so coming through, I think what he found was a more of a focus on exactly what kind of strategy he went for. And so when he had laser focus on that strategy, he got tremendous results, and he was able to buy 3 properties within the 6 months. And all of these properties are really good cash flow with a good future potential for future developments. And he's going to be sharing the details with you in this video. So I'm confident you guys will get pretty good value out of it. So here you go.
Look, we had been investing for a little while, and then it was around August last year we came across MHQ and kind of changed our approach quite significantly. So what we were setting out to do, the strategies that we took out of the course were like at least multi-dwelling or multi-unit. Home and income was kind of on there, but probably not very likely that we were going to do that, and subdivide the whole, which has been a really good one for us. But ultimately, we wanted to have from the age of 60, so rather than 65 for retirement, that we wanted to have 200k of passive income coming in, and that's our goal. That's our ultimate goal. Along the way, there's a couple of things that went into the plan, right? So thinking back to the course, that concept of buying 3 houses, we thought, well, we better do it twice just in case we get it wrong. So we thought we'll do 6. And there was a couple other bits and pieces that were relevant at the time and still are, right? So the interest deductibility was coming in. There was talk about DTIs, rental control, all that sort of stuff. But we kind of had factored those things in our decisioning. And also when the market flattens, which I think you could probably argue that it certainly has in Auckland. So this was the first deal, just to have a bit of a recap. So this Tui Road, this is the one that I think in our view, it's not going to come along again. It was, we're really lucky to get this deal. And the thing that this did for us is, you kind of need a leg up, I think, to get started. So this in a lot of ways gave us the leg up to get started. Got fantastic gross yields, like over 7%. We kind of thought maybe we'd need to spend 20k or something to fix things up, but we spent like 8k. And since we bought the place, we've put the rent up, I think it's over $150 across the 2 dwellings. And all we've done is spend 8k. So that made a good deal into an even better deal.
But I'm interested to know, like 8k, what have you been able to do with that amount of money? Like, because it's not much, but you managed to tidy up both of the dwellings.
Yeah, so we put a heat pump into the black house.
How much was that? I mean, heat pumps like $1K?
Something like a bit more than that, I think, maybe 1,500 or a couple grand.
Yeah.
We put a fan in as well, because of course the rules had changed a bit. So, and in the White House, we had to do the rain shield or whatever over the oven.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a perfectly new one in there, but apparently it didn't meet the specs. So we had to rip that out and throw it away and put another perfectly new one in there to meet the healthy homes. A couple minor things like fixing up locks or holes in the wall and that sort of stuff. So, but it was to make it a little bit better rather than to make it amazing, because it's, the dwellings, unless we pulled them down and started again, they're not really going to be amazing, but at least to make them a bit better. And then you look at the returns, like you kind of do that to meet compliance for healthy homes and also to retain tenants. You don't want to lose tenants, but there's been really good demand.
That's really good result.
So that one's been good, and that's kind of given us the leg up to continue and do the others. We've advanced the plans, if you like. So this is one of the drawings from the builder. So it's just a brick and tile 3-bedroom for the new build in the middle. Very simple, and it slots in between the 2 houses. Each dwelling ends up with 2 car parks. So quite happy with how that's going, other than the fact the council's taken a bit longer than would have been ideal.
It's wider than usual car parks as well. It's not a skinny car park. 5.4 meters.
Yeah, I think we're okay, but for Rotorua, there's one thing I didn't understand was there's no road parking or hardly any road parking. So all the properties have to be able to take a couple cars. So some of them have yellow lines. You'd think you could, you have to be able to take a couple cars, then you could park another one outside your house on the street, but you can't do that in most streets in Rotorua. So actually, the tenants we did have in the Black House had 3 or 4 cars, so that wouldn't have worked out great. But for most tenants, I think 2 cars should be enough. It's probably a bit like Auckland, where you need a car to go anywhere. So everyone, every adult kind of has a car. So it comes back to how many people in the house. The plans for the new build on the left. So again, pretty standard. We changed a few things, extended the wardrobe on the master bedroom and moved the one on bedroom 3 to make that a bit bigger as well. Put in a second toilet, thought that would be quite nice. And then also moved the hot water cylinder. We were going to put it in the ceiling, and then I thought we'll just put it in the wardrobe. And also a big cabinet in the lounge. That's all we did, just sort of convenience things to make it a little bit more appealing.
Like, those cabinet stuff is usually, like, you only think about it if you have kids and stuff, eh?
Yeah.
That's what I noticed.
Yeah, that's right. And we also plan to build a little shed, because there's no garaging. So I think for each bigger dwellings, we'd have some sort of shed, and same at the other property.
So how many square meters is this?
The house,
yeah,
89. The new one's 89. The existing, the Black House is 72 plus the 2 appendages, and the White House is 60.
My understanding is that with minor dwelling, usually it has to be within a certain square meter, and usually it might be like 60 square meter. So Brendon is putting 89 square meter house here. So like, he probably have to go through the subdivision process. And what you're alluding to is potentially making the other one the minor dwelling, and this like the main main dwelling. Yep. And then subdividing off the other section. And that will what will that achieve? Is like, if you could build a minor dwelling, what would be the difference in terms of subdivision and minor dwelling?
So we'd have to do a subdivision anyway, because there's more than 2 dwellings. That's the rule in Rotorua. And so there's rules around the net lot size and that sort of stuff. So we couldn't put another house on the front, but we'll get to that in a tick. So really, it's to me, it's becoming a bit of a squeeze, but it's probably like $30 more a week in rent or something like that. Is kind of how I think about it. Because to live, let's say a family of 4 living in a 3-bedroom, 90 square meters, that's pretty comfortable. But a family of 4 living in a 3-bedroom, 72 square meters, like you're going to know about that. So I wanted that. The new house is absolutely the premium offering. The Black House is the nice offering, and the White House is for people that can't afford anything else. And that's how it was kind of geared up from the get-go of working through these plans.
Sometimes when you make a play like this, because you're buying a cash flow property, so your focus is still to increase the cash flow. Oh, yeah. What you're doing here, like, because when you build a minor dwelling, you're not actually sacrificing too much cash flow. Like, you're able to scale it proportionately, which is like quite important to note. Because a lot of the time when you build another house, like if you subdivide, usually the yield might actually come down a little bit. But if you build a minor dwelling, because the cost is significantly lower, usually it's increasing the yield. But in this situation, it's like, hey, you've already got a 7.5 gross yield property, and then you can scale it proportionately to get another 7.5. That means it's like you don't have to go out there to look for another property with 7.5 gross yield. You actually have that in your backyard, which is great, because you're getting more leverage, but you're scaling the gross yield proportionately, which is I think it's definitely worthwhile if you can go down that road where the gross yield is scaling proportionally.
Yeah, it's been fantastic, and it helps through the whole rest of the plan over the next couple of years. I kind of couldn't help myself. So, you got the 2 dwellings, you just put one in the middle. And so when we had the dudes out to do the CPT tests and drill the holes and that, we got them to drill some down here as well. And we reckon we can squeeze a little 36 square meters of sleep out on the front. So
They'll be. I mean, that's always positive cash flow play. So why not?
yeah, yeah. It's definitely an option, but it's we can just fit it on with 2 car parks, and the services would need to be connected because it would be a sleep out. So the services are connected. So there's a bit of work to do to make that happen, but it could be an Airbnb. It could be something that got rented together with the White House. It's not ideal, but that's one way we could use that land in the future. Just to give you an idea, this is what we've spent so far. So roughly 30K, 23 odd on Tui Road. So the geotech by far and away the most expensive. And we've paid for planning, we've paid the consent fee to the council, and I've got another consent fee to pay for the second deal as well. So we're just edging them along at a reasonable pace in line with our other deals so that they continue to move. So this is the second deal. So this one in November. And this is also 2 dwellings with room for a third. It's interesting. So the one at the back is a modern 3-bedroom renting for $570 a week. So it's absolutely stoked with that. The one in the front, the original house, it's massive. It's something like 120 square meters and it's 2-bedroom. It's renting out for $460, but it's taking up so much space and it's not really worthwhile knocking it down, but maybe at some point in the future, I might look at, can we convert that to a 3-bedroom?
You'd definitely be able to convert it. It's got no garage.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just looking at, I haven't looked at that yet. Like what would the plans look like? Would it make sense? How much would it cost? So it'd just be like working through that because I think we could get a lot more value out of it, like probably at least another $100 or maybe 150 a week. It's at least 100. And yeah, it's up there. And you can't really, like, even if you got someone to take it away, like no one wants it. It's massive. You'd need to cut it into 2. It's like, there's nothing great about it. But so this deal, but the best thing about this deal was the rent. So $1,030 a week. And we've just raised the front one up by $20. So that'll be $1,050 a week. So again, it's a good yielding property.
So it's quite good already to start with.
Yeah.
The yield is already like quite up there.
Yeah. So these are the drawings we've put on it. So essentially there's a garage in the middle. So we'd knock that out and I put an 84 square meter place here. Now, 84 is obviously more than 72, but you're only young once, but we'll give it a go and see how that works out. But the idea here is that we would need to get this guy, the neighbour's approval to do that probably. But it shouldn't really put anyone out of shape. Like it's a slightly bigger house. The other thing that could happen is the rules in Rotorua are up for discussion, and Rotorua want to opt into those major city rules, those new rules. Like if you own the land, you can build up to 3 dwellings. You just need building consent. So that may help us a little bit. But here we've got 2 car parks in the front for the original house, 2 end on end for the one at the back. Which is kind of what they had. They can kind of fit 2 cars up here at the moment, and then 2 in the middle for the new house. So it all fits just. And I think with bit of fencing, would build a small shed for each of the 3 dwellings as well. So there's still some storage. I think we're looking pretty good. So it's just a timing thing of when would we have the money and serviceability and all that to do this. So we're doing the Tui Road one first. And I mean, another thing is if it did change significantly and we were able to do what maybe we could do like in a small apartment or duplex or something, it might kind of come back in and maybe we would look at knocking down that front house. Yeah. But just not sure yet, but this is the current plan. And
yeah, it looks much bigger on the bird's eye view now, the front house.
Yeah, I think it was maybe the lens on the camera before. Yeah, it is quite a big house. And this is the one we've just done in all its glory. So this is Malfoy Road. So this one was, I mean, these pictures actually aren't as terrible, aren't that representative, but she was pretty rough. It would be fair to say the vendor had not spent really any money on it for probably 20 years. I mean, you could rent it out for $400 a week each unit, but it wouldn't be that great. So we put in 50K. Actually, we've got the workings there. So this is what we did for the renos. And yeah, so just the 2 units are more or less mirrors of each other. So for the front one, we replaced the kitchen and left the bathroom. For the back one, we replaced the bathroom and left the kitchen. But it all balanced out. So actually, by putting in 50K, we were able to add $150 a week to the rent across the 2. And I just had the rough calculations there that, you know, if you didn't get any increase, it kind of 6 years to pay it back. But, you know, obviously it's probably going to be shorter than that. And that's not really the reason for doing it anyway. We're doing it to increase our borrowing power and to...
Plus, you want to be a good landlord, you know, Brendon, you want to give out a nice place.
Yeah, it's actually, yeah, it's been pretty cool. So we're, I'd say we're above the market for what we're asking for this, for our 2-bedroom places. You know, for people that appreciate a nice place, like, it's been really cool. So there's been some good demand. I was a little bit worried there for a while. Got them rented out pretty quick. What I reckon by the end of it, we're going to end up 10 to 15% over our budget for the renos. I think we've done pretty well. The first one was actually finished, I think, almost to the day, a month after settlement. The second one took a couple more weeks. There was a couple things like it was one of the windows was not looking great, and so that took a bit longer, and the things that you wouldn't know until you started the job. So that's worked out well. Oh, yeah, and this was the 3 deals. So this is I guess the 3 C's across all 3 deals. I mean, you can look at some of those key numbers, and it's quite easy to spot that they're progressively not as good as the one before it. So there's a couple of things just to say to that. So the first 2, the Tui Road and Tui Road, they're both the development ones. So I think particularly recycling equity is going to be higher than a reno. There's also the advantage that with the new build at 80% LVR, the existing stock at 60% LVR, with the development ones, I think you kind of end up with a 70% plus LVR by the time you've finished it, when you balance out across 2 at 60 and 1 at 80. So that helps a lot as well. And also, it's not so much that the others are terrible, but Tui Road was like really, really good. The other comment on Malfoy, particularly down the bottom here, when you look at the, is it cash flow positive? No, not anymore. And the cash on cash return, all that stuff. I think that's probably more relative, because Malfoy for us got completely caught up with the interest rate hikes, the triple CFA, everything that could have happened to it. So this is probably more like, what are we looking at today for 2 units that needs renos, and then what are we looking at for 2 dwellings that has subdivision potential? Might not quite be as good as Co2, I'm not sure. But
with the new rules, the government changes, I think it does make the existing dwelling numbers look not as good. But I think the main thing for you here is keeping that gross yield high allows you to keep borrowing money from the bank. And sometimes a lot of people just miss that. Like, hey, yeah, we've got like a slight negative cash flow, but we can supplement it with say, for example, where it says total cash invested under funding, that money can come from like obviously a deposit from equity from your other properties. And what you're getting at the end of the day is like a larger leverage that you have capital gains for. Perhaps you're not getting a cash flow positive outcome, but you're getting a larger leverage, and therefore in the long run, the main thing is that you would end up with more capital gains because you're borrowing more money. Yeah, I guess there's that side that doesn't get seen, but you can definitely see, like you said, the Tui Road was a superstar.
And this is across 4 months, right? So it's not a long time, but there's a lot of
leverage spree.
Yeah, it was a bit, yeah.
What you have done here is you've created equity of around 500,000, just under, and you've put yourself like on overall, it's a cash flow positive property portfolio that you built. So it's actually very good results, because when you balance it out like that, you've generated capital gains, instant equity close to 500,000 by doing the dwellings that you're going to do, and then the overall portfolio is actually still cash flow positive, and you've got decent land on all 3 of them. Really appreciate you putting all the details to show everybody.
we used to think about it like, what, we do all this work for like $5,000 a year. Like if you think about what's the actual profit and loss for the year, but we think about it completely different now. Like you said, it's serviceability and leverage and capital gains and all that stuff, but we didn't used to think about it in that way. So the single biggest learning of this exercise, and I don't quite know what to call it, but as far as the lending events go, like you're applying for a loan, doing more than one of those at the same time doesn't seem to work so well. That was the biggest thing that caught us up, right? So the first deal hasn't settled and we were pushing to get the second deal done. The second deal kind of took a bit longer, and then we got pushed into the triple CFA, and then all the interest rates. And so ultimately, I didn't understand that. I naively assumed that you prepare your information, you submit your application, loan 1 approved or not, loan 2 approved or not, loan 3 approved or not. But it would appear that you kind of at least need to get loan 1 approved, or ideally settled before, because if it's the same bank or different bank for loan 2, they need to know exactly what's happening with loan 1. So until it's locked in and everyone's signed off, you can't get loan 2, and then you can't get loan 3. So that did cause some aggravation last year. Yeah. But ultimately, okay, I understand that now. So that's allowed us to adjust the plan for this year. And
it's funny you said that, because Bridget's actually going through the same thing. And obviously, like, they're really excited. They want to go for their third one straight away. And me and Ray are just like, let's just get these ones done first, and then we can sit down like straight away after we settle.
Yeah. Anyway, we got through it, and we're still getting a good result. And so happy with that. The LVR, when you're doing a subdivision or subdivide to hold, I think that's a big advantage. As I said, with recycling the equity. The triple CFA side of things, I mean, obviously that's painful for everyone, but we've gotten through most of that now, and it's actually absolutely fine to work with a debit card. It's just a bit more micromanagement.
Yeah, it's so annoying, because like now you're saying this is like, I mean, you can see on the news now, the intention was to regulate the riskier borrowers in the high interest space. And what ended happening was like that space, that market was unaffected, but like Brendon, you're a low risk borrower, which got a massive drawback from the whole triple CFA situation, which really sucks to hear, because it's like the process that the government went through to put those together is just ridiculous.
I mean, nobody wins out of it. No one. Like the brokers, the banks, no one at all anywhere in the process wins out of it. And I don't think the government wins out of it either. The end result, it's costing us at least a few extra $1,000 a year of increased expenses, and it's less convenient now. Yeah, so otherwise we had just a few little discrepancies, like the paint color was slightly different to what we'd selected, but okay. The doors were all good. They got painted and rehung and everything. They looked great. When the carpet went in, the new carpet was, of course, higher, if that's the right word, than the old carpet. So the doors wouldn't open and close properly. So I had to take the doors off. This is at Malfroy, and plane the bottom of the doors and stuff. So there's small sort of discrepancies, and same thing with the council consents. Yeah, and that's all good. But essentially, we're halfway through our 2-year plan, which may take a little bit more than 2 years. I'm not sure, but
if I may just jump in, because I like to just make sure that everyone in our group has that sort of same mindset. I know how challenging it was, and like the pain and frustration that you might have gone through. I think at the end of it, it's just looking back. You grew your portfolio by, I think it's around 3 mil, wasn't it? Well, like the total amount, like you grew your portfolio by 3 million, and not many people are in that position to be able to achieve that or do that. Yeah, sometimes we got to go, like there was a lot of pain, a lot of frustration, a lot of challenges that we had to go through. But I think at the end of the day, we are in a very fortunate position to be able to, be in that space where we can change. Like we know, like once we've gone through this is going to change the trajectory of the financial position for the family for many years to come. So I just I personally, like believe in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the right thing to do. It's it's just sort of appreciating the process of the day and powering on.
That's amazing. Like 4 months, you grew your portfolio significantly. Like I think it was like the sum of 3 million, and then you've got a cash flow positive play, and your borrowing capacity is still quite strong because of the very high yield.
I'll just take you through quickly, like the actual the steps that we went through, right? So we started off with the owner occupied. At that point, I'll point you towards some key things. So we weren't getting any retirement income, no passive income at all, right? There's a couple of things. We had about $1 million of cash and equity available. And at that point, we were quite constrained by our income. So we added the first deal, which is the Tui Road deal. We got a bit of passive income for the retirement coming in from there. DTI is up to 4. We're still constrained by our income at that point. So we've added the second deal, the Ko2 deal. We probably just drop off the owner occupied now. So just look at the rental portfolio. 2.5 DTIs, 100K of the retirement income. We're a bit less constrained, but we're still constrained by our income and equity position. So we could borrow 700K at that point. So the third deal, so this is where we're at today. This is our position today. 3 DTIs, we're 3/4 of the way into our plan. So for 200K, it's 153. And these colors change, right? So actually the green's good. So we could borrow the full 60% LVR for an existing deal. When it comes to a new build, then we're a little bit constrained by our income, but not significantly. The next deal, which is due for completion in September, is a terrace house in Auckland. So we add that, and that kind of that unlocks us, which is great. So when we add that later this year, that actually we've made our goal as far as the retirement goes, and we're all green. So from that point, we're no longer constrained by our income. So we can borrow for an existing build, we can borrow for a new build. Then we build the first house at Tui Road. So that adds even more borrowing power. And then once we've done that, as I said, I've learned to not try and do multiple things at once. So we finish that and then build the second house at Ko2. And our finishing position for the whole 2-year plan for 6 deals is actually we could pretty much go out straight away and buy another house, which we probably will do. These figures aren't, triple CFA certified, whatever, but this is a guideline of just on paper, what could we do? So green on here doesn't mean green from the bank, but green on here means it's time to have a conversation with the mortgage advisor, and then if they also agree, put it in for an application. By the time we're done, that's sort of 4.3 million of market value, just under 2.5 of lending. And if we put in the owner occupied as well, then 5.7 million and 3.5. And then across the whole portfolio, so the rental properties are 6.8 gross yield, 10% coverage, but including the owner occupied, it drops off quite a bit.
So basically the bottom is it's an LVR calculation. So basically looking at your equity on the max lending position based on your equity, how much you could potentially borrow. And it's a matter of like whether or not you can service that new lending that you're getting.
Yeah. So the very bottom one, this is like the borrowing power. The ones above, 70% is just there in case the rules change or something. So it's just the middle ground. But the 60 or 80 that's how much you could borrow if you were not constrained by your borrowing power at all. So so that's what you want. But and our finishing position is we're not constrained by our borrowing power. So we can borrow up to whatever the Reserve Bank or the bank will allow us to borrow for any given deal.
Perfect. You put yourself in a really good position where you have those options to choose. Hey, do I wait to do the minor dwelling? Or do I just, maybe consider another house